I think we're live here.
Should be, yeah. For once, the video didn't work the way it should have.
Do you want me to click on it and see if it works?
Yeah, would you mind?
Which one is it? Is it the third one, the most recent?
No, it's the one that says 5.0.
They're really small in the video clips. Let's try this one.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening, as Dan says. Welcome to Journey to the Cloud 5.0. And this is our fifth event in the series of Journey to the Cloud. We have some fantastic guests tonight. We've Joseph, we've Dan, we've Frank, we've Aaron Dan, we've Dominic, and we've Solomon joining us for Journey to Cloud 5.0. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
How are we all this evening? How is everyone this evening?
Very good.
Good.
I'm awesome.
Good.
Excellent.
That's good to hear. Okay, so tonight we're going to have a few presentations. We are going to start with Aaron Dan. Adam, if you want to take the floor and share your presentation, anyone else that wants to mute their mic or camera can do. Off you go, Aaron.
Okay, so let me share my screen. So you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So my topic today is power of DevOps, CLI and REST API. A little bit about myself. My name is Arundam Mitra, and I am an Azure Cloud and DevOps architect. Over having 16 years of experience, mostly in cloud for 5 years now. You can look into LinkedIn, GitHub, Dev Community, Sessionize, where you have everything. All my articles published. And I haven't prepared the whole presentation only because this whole demo. I mean, this whole topic is much cooler if you see live rather than if I put it in PowerPoint presentation, and that is why I have kept it very, very discreet. And I will quickly jump into the demo so that you can experience that what I actually mean when I say that the power of DevOps, CLI, and REST API. Okay, so on that note, here you see that this is my DevOps organization. So when this is my DevOps organization, then the first thing about whole DevOps thing is we need it because we need to do the CI/CD part, which means that continuous integration and continuous deployment. And this is the automation part, and you can use PowerShell, you can use Terraform, But in order to do that, the first thing which you need is a DevOps organization and then a DevOps project. So this is my DevOps organization, and then you see that I have like a demo Arundham Mitra as a project. So this is a private project. But when we are creating this project, so it might happen that in an organization there might be like multiple projects, and every project will demand a DevOps project because they have their application code, they have their infrastructure code, and they want to keep it they want to segregate it by DevOps project. So it can be like one organization, and then you can have multiple DevOps project, depending on how many project is running in your organization. But when you are deploying this DevOps project, it also needs some kind of a best practices. So first thing is that uh, when you are starting a project, and when you're starting that project in a sense that you want to automate it, the first thing you require is a DevOps project. Once you have the DevOps project, then probably you need repositories, because here you are going to push your code, and this is where you're going to version control it. Now, once you have this code, then probably you will have every repository has a main branch, and when the main branch is there, it also has branch policies. And these are the branch policies, like there is a minimum number of reviewers. There's like when you are doing a pull request, that pull request has to be associated with the work item. Then when you are doing a code review, so you did a code review and then you added a comment in the code review, and till the time the developer or the DevOps engineer has resolved that comment, you cannot merge the pull request from your feature branch to your main branch. There are like how many merge types are there, how many merge type you want to allow in your project. What about the reviewers? Okay, like I have 4 or 5 reviewers, so instead of adding it like by one, maybe I associate a Azure Active Directory group. This is something, these are like one of the best practices in the repository which you can do. Then if I come to the pipeline part, you need to have environment, because if you don't have environment, then you cannot have the approval gate. The approval gate is something like you're releasing a code, and you're deploying something in Azure, but there has to be an approver who approves it. Only when then you can deploy in Azure. But in order to do that, you have to have an environment. Similarly, like pipelines. Here in the pipelines, it can happen that uh, application is also running their pipelines, and infrastructure is also running the pipelines. And when you start seeing that, it's a huge list, and then you cannot bifurcate that. Okay, which is the infrastructure pipelines, which are application pipelines. So you need to have a bifurcation in terms of folder, like infrastructure has a folder, application has a folder, maybe database has a folder, and then you have segregated again into subfolders. Okay, infrastructure, okay, I deploy resource group, so resource group a folder. I deploy an app service, there's app service. So then it looks much neater. So this is again something which is very much required. Then every project also needs agent pools. Agent pools are nothing, but these are like VMs, virtual machines. Either those are Microsoft hosted virtual machines, or it is like a self-hosted agent. Like you have VMs in data center, and then there's those VMs are then associated as an agent pool, and these VMs are basically the base infrastructure on which your pipelines are running, executing all the tasks which is mentioned in your pipeline. And after that execution, everything is seen in the Azure portal. So if, like, for example, now all the things which I mentioned, if you have to do on a daily basis, repeatedly, same thing over and over again, it becomes really cumbersome. It becomes really, really tedious. And this is what and I have built a pipeline. This can be done in various ways. It can be done with PowerShell. It can be done with DevOps CLI. It can be done with REST API. It can be done with Terraform. But I thought that, okay, why not to give the whole Microsoft native tooling rather than a third-party tooling like Terraform. So I started exploring with DevOps CLI. I started exploring with REST API because why I use REST API is very simple that, few of the configurations are not supported by DevOps CLI. And then what I did is I used REST API and then I merged the REST API with DevOps CLI to make the automation run. Now, here you see that I have already have a published blog out here. This is like stating everything, and this is what my pipeline is doing. So my pipeline is actually installing the DevOps CLI extension. And then after that, and this DevOps CLI extension is required in the build agent to run the CLI commands. And then I'm verifying it by running a help command in the DevOps CLI. Then it is displaying the PAT token. And this PAT token, you will see in the demo itself that this PAT token is actually provided in the runtime, because without this PAT token, PAT is again, the full form is personal access token. And without this PAT, you cannot create a DevOps project. And then finally, you create a DevOps project. Now, once you create a DevOps project, then you are making it as a default configuration. Like, when you're running it, you always don't have to mention the DevOps organization URL or the project name. So you're making it a default, you're setting it as a default. And then you are creating repositories. Then you're initializing the repositories, creating pipeline folders, then again pipeline environment, which I mentioned about the environment because this is where you're going to put the approval gate. Then you are creating the agent pools. And these are all the main branch policies which I'm setting, minimum number of reviewers and kind of things. So this whole thing, you can do a lot more things, but I was exploring and I thought that these are the bare minimum things which every DevOps engineer should be doing when they are provisioning a DevOps project for any of the application projects or anything. So this is the bare minimum thing, but of course you can do multiple more things with CLI and REST API. Even with Terraform, there are a lot of providers coming up. But this is I feel that every project, no matter how small or how large it is, it should have these basic settings. Now, all these things, all the settings which I said, I have put together in a code. And this is the code out here in the Git repository. Now let's little bit see the code, and then I will come back to and run the pipeline and show you that how it works. Okay. Now, in my pipeline, what I have done is that the trigger part is the most important part. It means that I have put it as none. It means that you can put it as main, or you can put it as a feature branch, which means that, okay, that whenever somebody is committing from the feature branch, then this pipeline will automatically start. Or if somebody is committing directly into the master branch or main branch, then this pipeline will automatically start. But I don't want in that way, so I put it as none. Now then I declared as a parameter. So this whole section is a parameter section. What does it mean? It means that these are runtime parameters. So these are the fields which you will see in the GUI of the pipeline when you're going to run. So when you trigger the pipeline, it will give you all these options. It will ask you for the PAT token. It will show you the DevOps organization URL. It will ask you for the DevOps project. And this will also ask you the DevOps description. So you're making it more dynamic in sense that you're giving the user flexibility. Okay, what project name you want to keep? What is the test project? And also, you are asking the user to provide the PAT token. Now, this PAT is very, very powerful. If this can be, if somebody has it, he can create multiple projects. That is why whenever you are generating PAT, it has two things has to be kept in mind, that we are not going to keep it in keyword, because again, it can be viewed again by people who has access. Even list and get is also dangerous in this part. And whenever you're generating PAT, it has to be short-lived, which means that you are generating a PAT for maybe 2 days, or even if you are generating for a month, then as soon as the job is done, you expire the PAT token, so that you're maintaining a little bit of security boundaries, and your security officer is not questioning. So, if anybody from my team is running this code, okay, the first thing they have to ask is, okay, can I have the pad token? I give the pad token, they run it, I expire the token. So that is how the flexibility I'm keeping it. Then is the second part is the declare variables part. So these are the variables which any user can change. If some, for example, like Matthew is running this code, and he feels that, okay, I will change the environment from dev to non-prod or maybe to pre-prod. So he can change it. Uh, Maybe Dan doesn't like AM pool 01. He will put as Dan pool 01. The user, the email ID, everything. So the way this whole pipeline has been designed is that only by changing this section and by changing this section, that is all you need. The rest, even if you don't understand, it will still work even if you change these values. So this is the dynamic part of the whole provisioning of the DevOps project. Now then I declared the build agent. So the build agent here is I have taken the Ubuntu latest. It means that I'm using the Microsoft hosted agent. It is again a dummy VM where on the top of which your pipeline is running. Then I declared a stage. So it's a single stage pipeline because I don't require a multi-stage. So I kept a single stage pipeline. And then the first thing, which I'm doing based on this whole documentation or the blog which I have written, the first thing which I'm doing is like, I'm creating a DevOps project. So this is what, oh, sorry, I'm actually installing a CLI extension. So this is the CLI extension field or the code snippet, which is doing that. Then the next stage is that, okay, CLI extension is done, but I have to validate whether the extension has been installed properly. So I'm just running a help command, az-devops-h, just to check that, okay, CLI is like, installed properly. Then what I'm doing is that, I'm making sure that the path which I'm running or which I am providing during the runtime, is that path correctly accepted by the build agent? And that is why I'm displaying the path. This is again not necessary, but I have when I was testing the whole code, I was just putting every block of or piece of code so that there's very, very minimal chance of failing. So that is why I displayed the path. Then I moved to creating the DevOps project. So this is where I'm creating the DevOps project. So you can see that I have taken the name from the runtime parameter. I'm taking the description from the runtime parameter. I'm taking the organization details from the runtime parameter. So everything is dynamic. Either I'm taking from the runtime parameters or I'm taking from the variables, but there is nothing hard coded. Then I am setting it as a default, again, using parameters and variables. Then what I'm doing is I'm creating repositories. So one thing to note is whenever you are creating, for example, I'm creating a DevOps project called Dan. So I created a project called Dan. So as soon as I provision a DevOps project called Dan, it automatically also creates one default repository by the name of Dan. So that is why what I did was I additionally created another 2 repositories. So here what I did is I'm just doing everything dynamic. So I took the DevOps name from the parameter and I just appended -infrastructure and -application. You can change it to anything. It doesn't matter. Just for the for example purposes, I took it. So if my DevOps project name is Dan, so it means Dan-infrastructure, Dan-application. If my DevOps project is Matthew, Matthew-infrastructure, Matthew-application. That is how it's going to create the repository. Now, once the repository is created, then you have to also initialize the repository. What do you mean by initializing the repository? It means that you have to make it available so that you can put the required files and you can start using it. You can start placing the code and version control it. So you have to initialize it, and this is where this is the code. So the first part, this whole configuration is required before you can initialize any of the repositories. So you have to set the username, you have to set the email addresses, you have to make sure that whenever we are initializing the repository, it means that we are targeting the main branch and nothing else. And then, we have to make sure that we are resetting the HTTPS proxy. Otherwise, it will not be able to resolve the entire URL with the Git appending it. So it will fail. So that is why we have to set this whole configuration first. And once we have done this, then I'm just putting small text that repo name is like, I'm taking it from the runtime parameter. I'm redirecting it to readme.md file. And then I'm just committing it. I'm just, first adding it, committing it, and pushing it. And I did entirely for all the repositories out here. Then is the next step, which is like creating the pipeline folder. Now, this pipeline folder which I'm creating is again, again using I'm using the PowerShell task, and I'm creating the pipeline folder where it is like making sure that I have repositories like application and I have repository like infrastructure. So based on that, I have also created pipeline folder like application and infrastructure. And then I'm creating the environment. Now, here in these two sections, when I'm creating the environment and when I'm creating the agent pool, these two, why I'm using REST API, because these are not being supported by DevOps CLI. I had a look into the whole documentation. I will show you later, but that's not possible. And that is why I use REST API. It's very simple. What I did is like, I'm using, when I say REST API, it's like, you have to send it by, with the whole, you have to invoke it, and you have to have it in a JSON format. This is what I did. So the environment name, I'm taking it from the variable, and then I'm putting it in the JSON format. So this is the JSON format. And when I'm doing this whole thing, then I'm putting it using Azure DevOps Invoke. So when like if you want to use it in a PowerShell way and you want to use REST API, you have to integrate it with Azure DevOps Invoke commandlet. And this is what I did for environment. And it's a similar process for creating the agent pool. How I came into this, how I concluded that I have to do it in this way. There's a very good documentation available in Microsoft. You see that here it's the DevOps CLI and here is the DevOps REST API. So everything is available. You just have to read it and you have to do it. And how I'm using the REST API and how did I conclude that, okay, I have to put it in this format. This I read from here. You see that if I have to add an environment, the request body says that I have to put name and then I have to put description. And when you have to add something using REST API, it is always post. And when you want to fetch something, like you want to list down something, it has to be get. So I'm using the post. This URL doesn't change because this has been provided by Microsoft. All changes is the organization in the project. I use this whole thing. So in my case, this is this part, which is dev.azure.com. It's common. It's generic. It doesn't change. It will never change. So I kept it that. The organization name, it is coming from my runtime parameter. The project name coming from runtime parameter. And these all are all predefined standard from Microsoft, which will never change. So I just used it. I just made it parameterized. I use this whole format, put it in the JSON body, and then I fired the command using Azure DevOps Invoke command, which I explained it here. And then finally, I'm putting it everything. I'm putting all the branch policies in place. This is the minimum number of reviewers. If you are doing a pull request, that should be associated with a work item in Azure DevOps board. If you are doing a code review, then if I am the reviewer and I have put a comment that okay, this naming convention is not correct, and so before he does a pull request from his feature to main branch, he has to make sure that he makes the correction, he resolves the comment, only he will be allowed to merge from feature to master. And finally is the code reviewers, in the sense that who are allowed to actually approve the code or approve the pull request. So this is all about the code. And now we see in reality that how it works. So I go to my organization, and this is my repository. And here I have put all my codes out here. This is my trial things, and this is where you see that the code is there, which is already published. And now I go to the pipeline. Even when I'm doing in my own test environment, I try to keep the best practices, and you see that all the things which I'm testing to publish in my blogs, I've kept it in a particular folder, and you see that there is a AZ DevOps CLI folder. So I click on this one, and now I go here and I simply run the pipeline. When I run the pipeline, you see that I'm getting all those runtime variables here. I need a path. The DevOps organization is pre-populated. The project name is pre-populated. Description is pre-populated, but there is no path token, which means that even if you have the code, if you cannot run because you don't have the path token. Now, I already have a path token generated. So I will just copy this and I will put it here. And what I will do is I will just change it to AM, not AM01, but maybe AM0010. And this, I will just make it run. So now this is all going to set up everything. So now since I'm running it in the Microsoft hosted agent, it might take a few seconds to invoke the pipeline. And we see that everything which was written in the code, it will start executing one by one. Okay, I'm glad it worked. Now you see that let's focus on each and everything. So you see that I have now the CLI, Azure CLI installed, and I have all the everything installed out here, and this is the version of the CLI which got installed. Now I displayed the path token out here. Okay, so this is this is the CLI help which I fired. So it is showing me that what AZ DevOps CLI can do. Then I displayed the path token. You see, this is a path token which got displayed. Then I created the DevOps project, and I'm displaying it as a table. So you see that I am like AM0010 is a private DevOps project with the Agile and a Git source control. Then I set it as default. Then I created repositories. So you see that I have an AM0010 infrastructure, and then I have an application. Then I initialized all the repositories. These are the pipeline folders which got created, infrastructure and application. Then I created the environment. Then I created the agent pool, and then the rest of the things. Now, how it looks in the DevOps GUI. You see, earlier I had AM Cloud and Arundham Mitra, and now we have AM0010. So this DevOps project got created. So this is one task. Now, the second task, I get into this, I go here, I see the repos. Okay, so this is the default repo which I mentioned that when one repo gets created by the name of the DevOps project itself. Now let's see if they have created another one. Okay, application and infrastructure got created. But you see that in every repository, you will see a readme.md file. And if you go here, you see that I've just put a small test mentioning the repo name itself. If I go in application, If I click on README file, if I go to preview, you see it's the same name which I have fetched from the repository name. If I go to the infrastructure, again README, it's again. So this is how I created the repo, and then I initialize the repo. So this is again. So we created the project, we created the repository, we initialized the repository. Now we look into pipeline folders. Okay, let's go to pipeline, and here you see I have created two folders, application and infrastructure. Okay, so this is also done. Now, what about pipeline environment? Okay, let's go. So I go to environment, and you see there's a dev environment. I have created a dev environment. Cool. Then I go to agent pool. Okay, so I go here in project settings. I go here as service connection. I'm sorry, agent pool. And you see that I have created this AM pool 001, which got created. Okay, cool. Now I go here and I see that all these minimum number of reviewers, check link, every possible policies which I have created against the main branch. So let's review that. Now I go to the repository. Once I go to the repository, I go to the branches. Now when I go to the branches, so in the repository itself, first of all, I have 3 repository, which means that each repository has its own main branch. If I go to this repository and then I click on this one, you see that there is one main branch. Now, if I go here in the application repository, it will also have a main branch. And if I go to the infrastructure, it will again have the same similar main branch, which means that when I have to set that whole policies for the main branch, it means that I have to set that policy 3 times because I have 3 different repository and each repository has a main branch. So I will first start with this one, the default repository which got created. Now I go to branches, you see the main branch. Go to the extreme right, 3 dots, click on it, you go to the branch policy. When you go to the branch policy, you see all the settings which I have done. So I have put minimum number of reviews as 2. I have also selected that, how it should react or what the policy should be doing when a new changes are being pushed. What should be the action, regarding if I want to check for link work items, it is required. I've put it required as not as optional. Also for comment resolution, I put it as required and not as optional. And finally, when I put as limit merge type in sense like, you have a feature branch and then you have a main branch. And how do you want to do the merge or the pull request? Normally, how we do it is that in the feature branch, you do, you do a lot of commit and kind of thing. You don't maintain the commit history. It's too shabby because you are constantly coding, shooting, and then when you're doing the merge, you don't want to keep it. So it depends upon what kind of a commit you want to do, and how your infrastructure as a code or application code would require. So either as 1 or 2 enable, or you can enable everything. So I enabled everything as a part of the policy. And then finally I have put as a review, and I will just add myself as a required reviewer, which means that every time there is a code review required or merge required, pull request required, every time they will ask me for the whole approval thing. So for AM01, again, if I go back here, if I go to application repository, if I go to the main branch, you will see exactly the same policy. Finally, if I go to the infrastructure, and if I go to the main branch again, you will see that again it's all the same. So it means that if in an organization, if anytime they need a DevOps project, I always go to manually create them again, one by one, create everything. Instead of that, maybe I just run the command, like 5 times a day, 10 times a day. It doesn't matter because it just takes 2 to 3 minutes in the whole execution, and it creates everything. Things I want to highlight is like the code and the entire process how I created is mentioned in my blog. I have tried to explain every code snippet one by one. So this is the code block, which is here in the blog as well and in the Git repo. I've also tried to put together a screenshot where how the runtime variable looks like. Then I have tried to explain that these variables are like these are dynamics. You can change it and these can be done. Then the pipeline result, how it looks like. So all particular details regarding how the pipeline execution is done is mentioned here. I've also tried to explain that why I have added these block of things, and if you don't add, what is the kind of error you are getting. So this is also I have tried to explain. So if you're not adding those usernames, email, initialization for the main branch, if you see in the screenshot, it doesn't allow you to proceed. If you're not resetting the HTTPS proxy, it is not able to resolve the host. If you are not using the git push command, then you are encountering that it's not able to read the username. So these were a lot of experience which I gained when I was doing one by one. I was trying to execute because remember that everything is happening in the build agent. So your code has to be dynamic enough to understand that, okay, it is happening in the build agent, and that build agent is somewhere sitting in Microsoft data center, or maybe somewhere sitting in your data center. Maybe you have an RDP access or maybe an SSL access. Maybe you don't have it, and you have to amend your code in a way so that uh, it is pragmatic enough to balance out all the scenarios so that your pipeline execution is correct. And finally, the pipeline folder creation. Regarding here, I have also mentioned how and where, like how you have to browse, where you have to go to find the REST API links for adding the pipeline environment and the agent. And this is the code snippet for everything. So have a read of this blog and go through this, run the code. I'm pretty sure that it is going to run. I'm again finally going to show you the final run of the run history once again, so that okay, if I go here. So this is how every time you run, you like if I for example, this is what I was trying. You cannot identify, so there are like a lot of pipelines. If I'm not making it in a folder, it's very difficult for anybody in the operation, real-time operation, to handle that. Okay, which is my pipeline? And here in the folder, I just browse the folder. I go here, I see the history. This is my latest run, and this will exactly tell you how much time it took. You see that the whole DevOps project creation, including putting it as a best practice, it just took me 1 minute, 4 seconds. So imagine that, if I have to create 10 different projects, just, maybe a little bit of tweaking, maybe changing the names here and there, maybe it will take me 1 minute. And, my execution is going to take me 2 minutes, and 3 minutes and everything. And think about how much time it will take, if you have to do every time the same repetitive process. That's all from my side. Like again, just to mention, this is the link of my blog. I'll post it again. This is the repository. It's a public repository, so you can fork it, you can clone it. And regarding the REST API and CLI, visit to the Microsoft documentation. They have documented really well. Um, this is the whole REST API documentation. The most important part in order to understand the REST API, my suggestion before you put it into DevOps and how to use it, is use Postman. I would have loved to show you someday. Maybe I'll write a blog on that. But like using, if you want to really play with REST API, I would suggest that you should have hands-on on Postman first, because Postman is more like feeding details and then triggering the API call. It's more of a manual way, because that way you will understand how the REST API is actually working, and that will give you a better understanding it, embedding it into Azure DevOps pipeline to use it further into automation. So yeah, that is all from my side. Finally, just before I take any questions, I just wanted to thank Matthew and Dan for providing me the opportunity in this channel and the Journey to the Cloud forum to present my work. Thank you so much.
Thank
That
you
was awesome.
so much, Aaron Dan. Obviously, my name is Matthew. So I myself and Dan started this group of engineers and IT administrators and DevOps, and it's just grown. Is the only word for it. It's grown so much. Aaron Dan, that was by far one of the best presentations I've actually ever watched on Azure pipelines. I'm looking forward to having you on our sessions more. You have been a regular contributor, and obviously, Aaron Dan is going to be one of the engineers that's going to be welcome onto the most valuable contributors section of my website, where
Thank
we're
you so
going
much.
to feature engineers that get involved in our journey to the cloud. Aaron Dan is quite talented, as you can see, and I'm delighted you could join us this evening, Aaron Dan. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for inviting me, showing my work. Dan, thank you so much for promoting me. I just want to call it out loud that I started my whole speaker session with Asa and with Dan and with you, Matthew. And I will always try to be in your forum, present my work whenever it is possible. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, so we have Frank Falvey next, delivering a presentation on AZ900, the Microsoft Fundamentals Azure exam for all those beginners starting out. No more than me, no more than Dan, Solomon, and we all started somewhere, and I think most of us have looked at the AZ900, and it's a building block to what is an amazing career in Azure. Once you start getting stuck into it and learning it and actually using it in real live environments. Frank, the floor is yours. I will turn on the presentation. Thank you very much, everyone. Frank, you're up next.
Been in the technology space for over 20 years, mostly data storage business, Dell and EMC. So I'll just get on to the next screen there. So this evening, I'm going to go through the Azure Fundamentals, number AZ900. This is just an overview. I'm not going to go through the whole course, obviously it'll take too long, but it'll kind of give you an overview of everything you need to know for the Azure Fundamentals. So here, it's broke up into 6 areas. I'm not going to read out everything now because we'll be here all night, but just to give you an idea, like, cloud concepts there is kind of broken down into 20 or 25%. And for the exam part, they kind of require you to get 700 out of 1,000. So when you're looking at this weighting thing, somebody might get 40 questions, somebody else might get 45. So that's why they have the 2 different things there like that. So it's, as I say, it's broke up into 6 different sections. So I'll just go on to the next one there. So module 1 is kind of broke down into different areas. So we've got the cloud modules there, like public, private, hybrid. And then it kind of goes then into the benefits and considerations. And then you got your cloud services, your IaaS, your PaaS, and your SaaS. I'll explain a little bit more as we go on these kind of things here now. Like There's your public cloud. So the public cloud is basically Azure is the public cloud, and the private one then is your in-house one. And hybrid is a mixture of the top two. So these are some of the benefits of cloud compute. The cloud, obviously, high availability, scalability, elastic, security, agility, just to name a few of them. So this is the other part of it then. Instead of spending a lot of money up front, you know, your capital expenditure, the public cloud gives you the OpEx, whereas you can just pay for what you use. Like the capital one, you don't have to go out and spend thousands of dollars, and whereas you can just go away and spin up something and pay as you go, as you can see in the bottom one there. So these are the kind of DIS, PaaS, and SaaS kind of broke up into different. In the green part is the part that you actually manage yourself. Like you can see there on the left, the on-premises stuff is belong to you. So you look after all that yourself. That's the stuff your capital expenditures after buying all this. So you have to look after that yourself. I think I lost the screen there. Yeah. So then the other part then is the blue part. That's the part like Microsoft looks after all that stuff. Like so, the software as a service. An example of that one is probably your email. You know, the only thing you do is you send that and you access it and stuff like that. Everything else under the hood, Microsoft looks after that. So that's a kind of an example of that shared responsibility. So then on to module 2. This is kind of focuses kind of on the architecture kind of components, like where your data centers are and where your resource groups and all this kind of stuff. Core resources like compute, network, storage, and databases. So these are kind of the architectural components of like regions, zones, resources, resource groups, subscriptions. So we kind of drill down into those a little bit. So like here is kind of the map really of all the Azure regions. There's some government ones as well. I can't see on the screen now, but there is one in China, one in America, as far as I know. But these are changing all the time. And there's new ones being developed all the time. So you can see there's a big cluster of them there in Europe. I'm from Ireland, so our one there is called Northern Europe. And yeah, so that's kind of where all the data centers are in the world. So next one. I think, yeah. So this gives you a rough idea of the resource groups. So you can have everything in one group there up in the top section. It kind of gives you, you know, you can have your databases, your VMs, your storage all in one group if you want, or else you can keep them all separate, keep all your web stuff and database in one group, or you can keep all your VMs in another group. And the same for storage. It's up to yourself really what way you can use your resource groups. So this is the subscription then. So the main account is the main person, so they can actually give out different kind of budgets or different departments or whatever way you want to kind of break them down, you know. And they could generate different bills for different departments and for like that. So, and obviously the main administrator would kind of have access to who gets what, and it's up to yourself what way you can see there's kind of done in a hierarchical structure, kind of billing accounts, billing profiles down to invoices then. So that's to give you a rough idea what subscriptions are. So the next one then is core workloads. That's like your VMs, your networking, your storage. You can see all the different types of storage in there, blobs, disk storage, file storage, and then all the different databases there, like the Cosmo DB and Azure databases, wherever. And all these can be found on the Azure Marketplace. There's actually tons of stuff. This is only kind of an example of some of them. So moving on then to module 3. So there's core solutions. So like you've got your Internet of Things to Azure Sphere, down to your data analytics stuff and AI and machine learning. So there's quite a lot of stuff in there. The Azure management tools then, right? So you can go straight into the portal, or if you're good at PowerShell, you can use that, or CLI, and you saw that in the previous one there. So then you got your Azure Advisor, Azure Monitor, and Service Health. They're all the kind of management tools. So these are the solutions. There, as I said, they're Internet of Things. So there's a lot of kind of stuff inside. You know, when you drill down into the Internet of Things, that's kind of good example of the Internet of Things. There's, you know, the Ring doorbell where you can see somebody at your front door. Well, that uses the Internet of Things. And the next space then is kind of your data analytics stuff again, your machine learning, serverless. So good lot there in the solutions. So these are kind of showing you again the management tools, how you can actually interact with the Azure cloud. Some people have their favorites. You know, people love just going into the portal and hate CLI. But I think you kind of need to touch on a lot of it. As far as I know, there's not much questions on the PowerShell, but there is PowerShell questions in the Azure admin, as far as I know. So next one. So we're on to module 4 there, just to show you kind of the Azure security features there. Defender for the cloud, and you got your Azure Key Vault there for holding your credentials. Then the network security. I'll show you a bit of that as we go forward. Network security groups and firewalls, denial of service protection. And as you can see there again, like Microsoft Defender for the cloud, that's including all the different policies and stuff like that, and gives you security alerts. And the big one there is Microsoft Sentinel. That's the big security part in the cloud. Key Vault there again for holding your credentials and dedicated hosts. So yeah, you can kind of see the security there, the way it is kind of set up into all different layers. So, you know, before you can get down to your data, there's a lot of layers actually to go through, you know, firewalls and network security groups and so on. So moving on to module 5, this is kind of the part where you got your identities and service, Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, all your controls, Azure governance, like for role-based access control, policies, tags. Tags are a handy one for, especially for naming kind of resources and for budgeting and things like that. So yeah, so the privacy and compliance part as well. That's, you know, the trust center. We just moving on there. More of a breakdown there of the identity service. Like, it explains the difference between authentication and authorization. Defines the Azure Active Directory. Describes the functionality of using the Active Directory, and again the authentication there, like the multi-factor one, you know, where if you log on to something there and they send you a message to your phone, so they want to know it is you, you know, very, very good. So yeah, you can see kind of there the governance part, and again in the picture kind of gives you an example like of the user sends a signal. The Active Directory wants to know who the person is, and they could send you a message back to your phone just to make sure it is you. Like, so there's the role-based access. Again, you see that all the time as being mentioned, RBAC. So that's what it stands for, role-based access. And next one. So this is module 6. So as I said, there was 6 modules. This is the final one. And it's kind of like all about managing your costs and stuff like that. So you hear people there spinning up VMs and they forget to spin them back down, and next they get a big bill at the end of the month and they say, oh, I forgot that, and next your credit card is after being hit. So yeah, the cost management is a big thing. Like, so so this service level agreement and life cycles, you know, that's the kind of thing like that they can guarantee you that if you put something up in the cloud, they'll guarantee you kind of 99.9% that it'll be there all the time. So that's kind of that sort of stuff. So as I was saying again about planning and costs, like before you kind of do anything with the cloud and whatever like that, you should have kind of a strategy, really kind of not just dump something up there and leave it. Like, so, you know, you want to identify what you can do and how much it's going to cost you and stuff like that, you know. You could just, like their reserved instance, we say if you're going to be using a VM and you're going to be using it in 5 years time, you can actually use reserved instance and it'll actually save you a lot of money over time. So that's kind of it, an idea with that. And the hybrid part then kind of use, you know, more in-house stuff that you can use rather than sticking it out on the cloud, you know, which is probably the best use of resources, really, the hybrid part. So the calculator there as well is very good for before you actually spin stuff up in the cloud, like it's kind of going to the pricing calculator, put in all the kind of stuff you need, how much storage, how much VMs or wherever. And it gives you an actual idea before you actually go ahead and do it. So that's that one. And there's the service level agreements again that I was telling you, like that. They guarantee it's going to be up 99.95% or wherever like that. And where, you know, what zones that you're going to put your stuff in. Like if you're, we'd say, if you're here in Ireland and you want to back something up, you know, we've got, as far as I know, we've got 3 zones, one in North Dublin, one South Dublin, and one in west of Dublin. So every time you save something, it's saved in those 3 locations. So that's kind of a general overview, really, of the Azure fundamentals. So Thanks, Dan and Matthew. Didn't take too long.
Thanks a million, Frank. As always, you're a valued contributor in this community. Frank will obviously be going up as one of our most valuable contributors on my website, www.focusit.ie.
Very good.
Frank is he specializes in Azure and has worked in the IT industry for over 25 years. So we're really lucky to have him here. The Azure fundamentals is something that everybody should do. It's a starting place in Microsoft with the new role-based exams. Myself and Frank, I'm sure, will be doing a bit of virtual sessions showing people how to set up Azure, how to get it up and running, RBAC, NSGs, WAFs, all that kind of good stuff. So we plan to do that down the line. So thank you very much, Frank. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us. Okay, guys, so the next presentation is actually going to be myself. I'm giving an overview of the MS900 Office 365 fundamentals exams. So I'm just going to put that up there. So a bit about me. My name is Matthew Brown. I've been in IT for the last 10 years. I've worked for large, medium enterprise companies. I specialized in help desk support, tier level 1, 2, and 3 for the first 5 or 6 years, and I moved on to cybersecurity. I now work for a company in Limerick called NTES. We are an IT specialist company that supports FWAP, Azure, Defender, Office 365, all that kind of good stuff. We manage sites from start to finish, and we provide 3CX phone systems to our clients. I'm also a MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer. I'm a Microsoft Certified Educator. I worked my way up through the Azure path to reach the Azure Solutions Architect Expert. I'm also a member of the British Computer Society and the Irish Computer Society. I started my IT career in what was back in 2012, and ever since I've just loved IT. So without further ado, I will start the presentation. So MS900, what is it? It's the 365 Fundamentals exam for Microsoft. It's the equivalent of Azure, but Office 365 element. It focuses a lot on cloud concepts, the compliance, privacy, and trust, and it focuses on pricing naturally because you have all the different Microsoft pricing tiers, especially with the recent changes to the education side and how Microsoft are pulling partners away from fixed pricing. It's now you have to have a yearly contract, or else you have to pay more monthly upfront. The MS900 consists of many different things. One of the interesting things is Microsoft Chat in Teams. It goes through the use of mobile devices, screen sharing, doing calls on Teams, setting up groups. We had Kat Greenan a few weeks back who spoke about different apps within Teams, and the 365 Fundamentals exams definitely focuses on Teams. It pretty much has its own section, so it's worth checking out and getting used to. Chat and collaboration Teams, discussing how the likes of Sharepoints, channels, voice and video calls, remote collaboration, how security and compliance comes into play with Microsoft Teams, the groups, the groups, the security groups, all the different types of channels, the policies behind those channels within Teams in the admin center, stuff that you kind of would be doing on a daily basis in an enterprise organization. So Teams goes into about 5 or 6 different sections. You have the scheduling, you have the multi-party, the devices, the content sharing in Teams, the live events, the transcription, the recording, and the publishing. So these are all features you're going to use in Teams every day, both as a user and an administrator. And what the 365 Fundamentals exam tries to do is it delves into a bit of each one so that you have the fundamentals of how do I screen share, how do I show content, how do I integrate SharePoint within Teams, and how does that all link in the back end for when you're managing the Microsoft tenant. So with that, you also have you explore the Office 365 apps, Teams, Excel, OneDrive, PowerPoint, Outlook, Word. This is particularly important in terms of the licensing behind the fundamentals exams, understanding how if a user has only the likes of an E5 license or an A1 for faculty or an A1 for students. It goes into that kind of thing. It also goes into the likes of Microsoft Business Premium, which was renamed to Microsoft 365 Business Premium now. And Microsoft did that recently. They just changed the name and structure of everything to do with their services. On my website, I'll have an interactive guide of how to deploy Office 365 Pro Plus in your organization coming up over the next few weeks. I'll be doing a session on it, and we'll go into more depth in that. So Microsoft obviously have made many updates to their subscriptions. They have the monthly enterprise channel, the semi-annual channel, and all of these kind of work their way in terms of when you're creating custom XML files to do deployments on devices, and quite a lot in it. I would definitely be looking at the Microsoft Learn Path for that element. I'm not going to go into detail in everything here because we have a short amount of time, but OneDrive is touched upon on the 365 Fundamentals exams. How to integrate OneDrive on computers, opening up OneDrive, signing in, knowing the difference between always on prem, always in the cloud, knowing when you've accessed documents and whether they're saved locally on your system, that kind of stuff. It goes into that. Then we have, so SharePoint is touched on as well. You have to understand how to build SharePoint sites. You have to look at the homepage, the back end side of SharePoint, how you assign permissions to users. How something that I noticed in the fundamental exam was you may get a question on how to actually pull reports of users that have permissions, that kind of stuff. All really nitty gritty stuff, interesting stuff. I find myself as an administrator for a large enterprise that I'm doing this on a daily basis. So this is really good content to get to know, to learn it, to see the back end in a very comfortable environment. All good stuff to learn. So what the 365 Fundamentals exam also does is it gives you an overview of the management process, the likes of working with forms and workflows. You also have how you can collaborate with others, whether it's on SharePoint, whether it's on Microsoft Teams. You also, from that, you learn the back end of the security part of SharePoint and how that integrates with Teams. So you create a team in you create a Microsoft team in Microsoft Teams. Hence, in the back end, SharePoint has a site for it. You can, within that site, you can drop folders in, you can create permissions for that. A lot of users, if they have certain rights, whether they're a contributor or a read-only or a editor, depending on what they have, they can contribute and make changes. Most of the time, as an admin, that's going to be restricted on an enterprise environment. So what the 365 exam goes through is quite extensive. It does go through Intune. It goes through the likes of setting up setting up profiles, device compliance, OS deployment, the difference between white glove and the white glove and automatic enrollment. It also goes through how you should be uploading Autopilot IDs. The 365 exam also goes through the Microsoft renamed the Intune Endpoint Management Console, and it's now your hub for everything Intune. You will find that Windows Autopilot over the last few years has really been worked on by Microsoft. A lot of companies are implementing this. So Windows Autopilot is spoken about in the exam. Whether or not it goes into the details literally depends on the type of questions you get on the day. You can get questions about how might you go about creating a profile in Microsoft Intune. What's the difference between a hybrid deployment and an Azure AD only deployment? How do you install Microsoft Office? Those kind of things. Active Directory is a very much important part of this exam. Azure Active Directory kind of ties in with Intune. Users, groups, AD Connect, AD Sync, all that good stuff that you need to understand. The types of authentication from single sign-on to MFA. It goes through all that. It also goes through the back end of Intune on how to set up and configure the MAM portals, the business store for if you want to deploy apps. So you're going to want to deploy apps in an organization, but you're going to want to do it very easily. So it might go through how you set up a Microsoft Business Store, how you set up the groups, how you assign users permissions to the groups so that when they open up the company portal, that the apps are either there or else as part of the Intune deployment when you're creating your configuration profile, the apps will have been installed as part of the setup. Business process automation, very much a Microsoft thing. SharePoint, Power Automate, Power Apps. If you have ever looked at any of the Power BI stuff, the fundamentals and that, you'll have got an idea of how that works. Arendam showed us pipelines in Azure earlier. There's a lot of automated stuff. You won't get asked a huge amount of questions on that, but it's something they touch on. So just be wary. Work management. It goes into how Microsoft Planner should be used, board charts, scheduling, 365 groups, all part of Intune, all part of Office 365, all part of Teams, all part of general life with Microsoft products in the cloud. So what I have noticed is Microsoft are keen on going through the likes of the benefits of modern management. It should be easy to deploy. It should always be up to date. You should have a proactive approach in building, maintaining and deploying it. The intelligence behind the security for Microsoft 365 services are something incredible, because I mean you have advanced threat protection with the business premium 1 and 2 licensing. You have all the additional APT and security compliance control. You have secure score. You have all stuff. What you'll find is the exam might touch on with the Intune and Endpoint Management Console how to integrate a hybrid solution. It may or may not touch on it, but it can, and it's there in the list of the scope of what the exam might have. How to Intune certificates, how to set up iOS profiles, Android profiles, all that kind of stuff. It's all in it, and it's really interesting stuff. I mean, who doesn't want to get a computer that says, welcome Matthew, or welcome Dan, or welcome Arendam? We're setting up your computer. It'll be ready in 10, 15 minutes. And You literally turn it on, you connect it to the internet, and you're welcome straight away. And it goes through the process and it deploys all the apps in the back end so that within 15 minutes you're good to go. You're ready to start your new career or your new job, wherever it may be. Your IT department can easily log in through Autopilot with the integration of other third-party tools like TeamViewer, Quick Assist from built in from Microsoft, all that kind of stuff. Really interesting. And this is just an example of what the Endpoint Admin Center looks like. It is a very interesting topic to get stuck into. I've done a 45-page document on the setting up of Microsoft Intune, which I'll be publishing soon, and all the nitty-gritties in Intune. Very interesting, I have to say. I enjoyed doing it. Intune, my oh my, how has it developed for the MS900? Intune has developed a lot over the years. It started off very basic. It worked its way up to integrating with Azure AD, then on-premise. Then we had the exams like the AZ800 and 801 where we had a hybrid deployments. Intune is where a lot of companies are going because hybrid work seems to be here to stay. So Intune is something you'll find if you at the fundamental stage. You'll want to work your way up to the associate level exams and to the expert level exams, and you'll just genuinely enjoy it. And you know the facilities within Intune make life very easier, especially if you're deploying. You can take group policies from your on-premise and import them into Intune with a thing called Intune Preview, and it lets you tell you if those group policies are suitable for Intune or if you can just scrap them and use built-in policies. So that's where Intune's at the moment. It's quite extensive. There's a lot in it, but it's very enjoyable, and the fundamentals exam does touch on it a bit. It goes through the co-management of Windows 10 devices in Intune. This is just a diagram of all the different services and things you can do. Then we also have the Autopilot Zero Touch deployment. This is what I was talking about. So this is my favorite part. I get very excited when I hear a client say, we want to be able to send our employees out a device. First of all, this is something that every organization does. They do it on a daily basis, and often hours are spent setting up these devices. So how do you start it? You set up the Azure tenant through the Endpoint Management Console. You create the deployment profiles. If you're doing a fully automated white glove experience, that's brilliant, because then the device is assigned to the user before they even get it. So you have your reseller or your OEM like Dell or HP. You purchase the device. The device is delivered to the employee. The hardware hashes are received by the OEM provider. They're uploaded to Microsoft Endpoint Management Console. They're then put into, if it's a device group like HR or management, you put the users in there and you make the assignment. If you're not doing any special groups and you're just assigning users one by one, which can be a bit more trickier to manage, you can just assign the user. The point being is that when the user is finished with this device as well, you have the ability to reset the device remotely, wipe the data, request it to be sent back to the supplier or the OEM provider. It's all really interesting stuff. Autopilot Zero Touch deployment is where it's at, it's where it's going, and the ability to have the white glove experience with a device is just amazing. So MS900 also touches on feature updates, quality updates, servicing channel, deployment rings. So it kind of goes into all the different things you can do with Intune. It's quite interesting. The Microsoft Learn part is quite good for it, so I definitely recommend having a look at it. The deployment methods. So as we can see, we've already had 5 or 6 slides. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It does go into Intune. It depends on what you get, maybe. So Windows Autopilot has an out-of-the-box experience, as I said. You must kind of have, Windows 7 or 8.1, which are kind of gone at this stage. It's now more Windows 10 or Windows 11. You have to have a minimum version of Windows 10, like 1803 or 1809. The ability to create the provisioning packages is very quick, and the activation of the Autopilot feature is very simple. You have to have a Windows 10 Pro or enterprise device with an enterprise license. They have to have access to at the time of this, it was each year E5. There's more than that. You can actually order specific Intune licensing for users, and you can assign them on a user per user base. Or what Office 365 does is you can just get a batch of licensing, and as you create each user account, they're assigned to licensing. So it's per user licensing, or it can be per device licensing. Something the Azure Fundamentals touches on is AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure Virtual Desktop is something that not quite a lot of people have gone over to just yet. I work for a company, as I said, called NTS, and we have a few clients over on Azure Virtual Desktop. It's a very simple thing. It's like going back to when we had the RDS set up in on-prem infrastructure, where you might have had one remote desktop server that would have been CALs, and users would have accessed this virtual system with a thin client like a HP or Dell thin client or Lenovo. But what AVD does, it takes it to the next step. So Azure Virtual Desktop is in the cloud. It's all configured within Azure. You can have it so that the virtual desktops are started up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, and they're shut down 6 o'clock Friday evening, or shut down 6 o'clock every evening, depending on what you want. AVD provides an ability to allow loads of users sign into multiple virtual desktops. It balances the load across them all, and users get a consistent experience, because usually the desktops have, most of the desktops would have the same software or golden image on them. Azure Virtual Desktop is really the replacement for the RDS servers. It's the replacement for using on-prem servers, for using virtual RDS servers on-prem. It's kind of once you make the move to AVD, you kind of stick with it, and that's where it's at. It's a very flexible platform, and you can scale up and scale down as you need, depending on the workload. So My Analytics is something Microsoft introduced recently. You get a lot of those well-being emails, collaboration, productivity insights. Every day we might get them from Viva Insights to our mailboxes if you're in an enterprise environment. Something quite interesting. It gives you an outlook of how your week went, what you did, where you were most productive. I can't see this coming up much in the fundamentals exams though. The 365 Admin Center is the hub of everything with Office 365. I started off my journey a good few years ago with learning about the 365 Admin Center and how it all integrates with your on-prem infrastructure, or it can be just 365 itself on its own, no on-prem. 365 hosts your what used to be known as your EAC, your Exchange Online, and that is where you go into to kind of look at user accounts that have mailboxes, all that kind of stuff that you may have done back in the day when it was on-prem. So the MS900 goes into that kind of thing. It goes into the security and compliance side, Microsoft Secure Score, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, goes into all that kind of nitty-gritty, and it's quite interesting. The 365 Admin Center has all the is your one pane or single pane of glass for all your different options where you might want to look at your Teams admin center, your OneDrive, your Exchange, your compliance, your Azure. It's all in there. And this is the hub of Microsoft's platform as a service offering. This is where you have, if you sign up to a business standard or an E3 or an E5 Office 365 account, this is what you'll have as an organization. Most people started off as a trial, and then they get involved with you have the likes of Micro Warehouse, you have Vusion, you have other resellers that might do integration with Office 365 and cloud offerings. So this is where you start, and that's what the service admin center is. So Microsoft 365 capabilities are pretty much endless. It has everything from your basic emails to your OneDrive to your Exchange. It's a simplified process of looking at everything under the one pane of glass. It's your alternative to if you might want to go fully online with everything rather than having a hybrid environment. But it's adaptable in terms of this works in a hybrid environment. So you can have your local AD server with your Azure Active Directory Connect installed, syncing up to the cloud. You have all your security groups from on-prem up there. The AZ800 and 801 exams goes into all of that. But just the MS900 kind of touches on a few bits just to see if you know what they are and have you heard of them. So really important things to know. The 365 for enterprise, business, education, and home. They're separate subscriptions. So in an enterprise environment, you might have an E3, an E5, an F3, formerly F1. In education, you'll have 365 for business. They'll have 3 basic plans, a standard and a premium. For education, a lot of that's handled through the through volume licensing, which is now being changed up again. They're getting rid of it. So education licensing is free or heavily discounted depending on the organization. And then, of course, you can have Microsoft 365 Home, but most people that are in schools or colleges are entitled to a free version of Microsoft Office if your school or college is a Microsoft partner. Billing is looked at in the admin center. It's on the left-hand side under purchase services. You look at that for all your invoices and stuff. If it's been handled by your CSP or your IT partner, you may not see this, and it's usually direct with them. So you have all the different SLAs, service level agreements, as Frank spoke about earlier. It kind of defines the incident, the downtime, the claim, and the service credit. So Microsoft guarantees a certain SLA, and if they don't meet that, you are guaranteed to get service credit, assuming they don't meet it, and you can log your case with them, and they'll usually deal with it. So the roadmap portal to learn 365. There's a lot of stuff in development with Microsoft over the last few years. They've kind of started integrating RSS feeds for Azure Active Directory, uploading CSV files for the likes of bulk user account creation, Autopilot device upload, CSV again, groups, CSV, security groups, you can do it through CSV as well, or you can do it with the AD Connect, sync them from your on-prem, and that works as well. So the hybrid model, the idea behind the MS900 hybrid model is that you have online, on-prem. So it's a mixture of both. You have your Active Directory Connect server in one place, you have your Office 365 online, the connector is installed, you sync the organizational units that you want to sync. It depends. Some people have their Active Directory structured in certain ways. So you might have your base contoso.com domain, and then you might have within it, you might have the users group, the OU group, you might have the devices group and all that. And that's what a hybrid model is. It kind of goes in between both. So you kind of realistically, as Frank said earlier, it's cost savings, it's reliability and compliance, and its functionality. Depending on what you want to do, you're either going to go with a hybrid, a cloud, or just an on-prem. One of the three. It depends on what management are looking for. It depends on what the client wants. It depends on what the real life scenario says. You also have additional considerations. When you're choosing this, you might look at the investment, buying hardware over a few years versus a continuous payment with Microsoft. You have to look at the likes of how quick hardware gets outdated. You might have limited in-house IT resources, meaning you don't have the professionals maybe in your organization to maintain an environment, or the person on site might only specialize in certain roles, aka Microsoft role-based certification, and you might want to offload this to your cloud provider. And also it depends on the capital you have as an organization. Migration from Active Directory to Office 365 is another beast in comparison. There's a lot of understanding how AD works, how Office 365 works, immutable IDs, all that kind of stuff. It's a minefield. There's a bit of work in looking at that. I would definitely suggest to check out John Saville's MS900 video on that. Some excellent stuff. Microsoft has brought in the Zero Trust methodology. This has come up quite a lot in the last 2 years. You will find that there's events on in Ireland and the UK and Europe and the US that go through Zero Trust quite a lot. Microsoft hosts a lot of online events for this. Very interesting stuff. Something you need to know for the exam. Defense in depth is it goes through the layered approach in the MS900: data, application, compute, network, perimeter, identity, access, physical stuff. You will probably know from back when you did your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus certifications with CompTIA, if you did those, or your CISP, or any of that kind of stuff. The CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability. This is something that us IT people live by, in terms of this is a way to think about security, understanding the balance, and how to get that right in day-to-day organization. The shared responsibility model kind of looks at the difference between software as a solution, platform as a solution, infrastructure as a solution, and on-prem. We can see here that you have all the different things. You've hosts, you've data centers, you've operating systems. Where the responsibility lies, whether it's the client, Microsoft, or the hardware manufacturer, all that kind of stuff. Shared responsibility model. The MS900 touches on the likes of data breaches, dictionary attacks, ransomware, and disruptive attacks. All really interesting stuff. It can be found in the security and compliance section. Again, John Saville does some fantastic videos on this. He's reached over 125,000 subscribers, so some really good stuff. Encryption is covered in the MS900 exam quite a lot. Understanding the encryption keys, understanding the the public versus private, all that kind of stuff. It goes into detail. If you've ever done CSR requests or certificate signing, you'll understand that. Working with the likes of GoDaddy or KeyTrust or Irish Domains or any of those, you'll have some bit of knowledge on that. If not, there's many people online like Thomas Morara and others that go into encryption in depth. Once again, Mike Chappell does a lot of this in his books and his videos. Professor Messer is another great person to look at. In terms of encryption, though, if you really want to get bang for your buck, I'd be looking at Udemy and Jason Dion. He is quite a good and well-known teacher in the United States, and he looks at the hashing, he looks at the cloud adoption framework, all that kind of stuff. As Frank said earlier, you're going to want to have a strategy. You're going to want to plan it. You're going to want to have your checklist, your adoption, your migration, how you're going to innovate once you're over to the cloud, all that kind of stuff. Identities comes up, especially with conditional access policies. You're going to have that in the MS900 because you're going to want to stop attackers from getting into Office 365 accounts. You can't afford a data breach on your global admin account or your break glass account or your on-premise accounts. So Microsoft goes into detail in that conditional access policies, understanding how they work, reviewing them. It's all part of AD. It's all part of Active Directory and the conditional access within the Security Compliance Center or within Azure. It's there for you might look at named locations and stuff. Discovering identity and important information across your environment, something we should all be doing on a daily basis. You'll probably be doing this if you're looking at logs and files for the Azure audit and sign-ins. Often people talk about protecting the devices in an organization, your BYOD policy, your data loss prevention policy. You're going to have a data loss prevention policy because, you don't want some morning to wake up to find out that you're after getting hit with ransomware and you have no site to go to. So you might have a cold site or a hot site or a warm site, or even you might have your Azure backups going over to the West Europe or North Europe, depending on where you are. Most of those things you're going to have. It's going to be part of your set of IT security policies. So check that out. IT security policies, data breach policies. It's all ahead of you. It's all stuff you're going to be doing and looking at on a daily basis. The MS900 does go into the compliance requirements, access rights, deny rights, name locations, conditional access, regulatory compliance, especially for GDPR. Microsoft has the secure score there, so you can go into that. You can see what your recommendations are. Remember, not everything Microsoft has in there is what might suit your organization. So be very careful in terms to read the policies and understand them. 365 Compliance Center, as I said, it's in there. The Compliance Manager with the secure score, we have that there. The types of assessments, templates, how you can improve it, all that kind of good stuff. Here's an example of what your secure score might look like. You'll have mandatory and discretionary reports available to you after you run that, and it'll tell you where you need to work on. Insider risk is something the MS900 focuses on. Again, it's all security and compliance. It goes into all the different bits and pieces you need in that. Restrict communications and information barriers. You need to understand how legal, government, financial, HR, all that kind of builds into it. Increase control with customer lockbox. It's used for if you're trying to properly hand over documents and files in a secure manner. You might request something from customer. It needs to be encrypted. It can go into this. Very secure, worthwhile looking at. So thank you. That's my presentation on the MS900. I look forward to kind of building more of a what you call it, I suppose, a virtual session with people over the next few weeks. And thank you. Thank you.
Very good, Matt.
So thanks everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for the information, Matthew.
I know it was quite a long one. So look, thanks for sticking with me. Do we still have Solomon? We do have Solomon. Solomon, I'm not going to delay. You are our final speaker of the night, and once Solomon's finished, we'll have a small bit of a Q&A. So Solomon, the floor is yours. I'm going to hand it over to you for the next 20 minutes. Okay?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll try to make my
Thank you very
presentation
much.
short. Yeah. Okay, I'll be sharing my slide now. Okay, just hold on. Okay, my name is Solomon Jeremiah. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I also have other certifications. And one of the certifications I have include the Enterprise Admin Expert. So today I would be talking about the self-service password reset and password write back in hybrid environment. I would also try to make it simple and fast also. So the question here is, what is the Azure Active Directory authentication? And for my explanation here, which is one of the main features of an identity platform, is to verify or authenticate credentials when a user signs in to a device, application, or service. In Azure Active Directory, authentication involves more than just the verification of username and password. So while I'll be going through my screen, I not really do a demo. I'll just try to use the Azure portal to explain better what I'm trying to say. So I will just share my screen quickly. Let me try to bring up my screen. I've already tried to set up everything. So let me just use my screen to be explaining why I'm also sharing this slide. So I don't know if you can see my screen now.
I can see only the slide, Solomon.
Okay, I am trying to. Okay, I'm actually sharing my screen, but I don't know why it's not coming up. Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay, I don't know why my screen is not coming up, but I'm actually sharing my screen now. Okay, can you see the screen now?
No, I still see the Azure Active Directory authentication page. It's stuck, I think, there.
Oh, okay. Over here, I can see the screen by the left side. Okay, so I'll just keep presenting with the slide I have. So, but I wanted to actually use my screen to explain better. So I don't know, Dan, can you help me with that? Can you see the screen from your side? Hello, Dan. Okay, I think Dan is not there. Maybe it would have helped me. So, what is Azure Active Directory Authentication? I already explained that. So the next thing I'll be talking about is to improve security and reduce the need for help desk assistance. Azure AD authentication includes the following components. So the idea behind the self-service password reset is to try to reduce the workload on your IT help desk. And a lot of organizations, they have okay, I think my screen is up now. Okay, they have a mixture of both on premises and cloud application, and users need to sign in to access these applications. But now, when we are talking about the self-service password reset, if you have users that are on cloud, and then we have sync users, when you try to set this up in your Azure Active Directory, the users you have in your on-prem, their password, when you do the reset, it doesn't actually sync it doesn't sync back to the Azure Active Directory, because when we are talking about on-prem and cloud identity, we have users that are created on-prem, and these users that are created on-prem, they sync from on-prem to cloud. And once a user is synced to cloud, you cannot delete the users from cloud. So when we are also doing the self-service password reset, you need to allow that to happen, there are some procedures which you need to follow. And when you follow these procedures, it would enable you to allow users to change their password. And when they change their password, they reset their password themselves, you would be able to, the password will be able to reflect on your on-prem environment. So I will just go through the slide again before I come here. So from the slide here where I was talking about let me just go there. Can I switch over to my screen back? Okay, I was talking about the to improve security and reduce the need for the help desk. Can I switch back to my slide? I think. Okay, yes. To improve the security. So I was talking about the self-service password reset, the Azure ID multi-factor authentication, the hybrid integration to write password changes back to on-prem, which I would be explaining today. Then hybrid integration to enforce password protection policies for on-prem on-premises environment, and passwordless authentication. So the next thing here is self-service self-service password reset, which is I defined here as the self-service password reset gives user the ability to change or reset their password with no administrator or help desk involvement. If user's account is locked, that's we have users that they have their account created from on-prem, and then they have domain join devices, and they use their account to log into those devices. And most times those users can also get locked out of those devices. So instead of reaching out to your IT help desk or administrator, the user can actually do that when we have the self-service password reset set up for the Azure Active Directory and also the Azure Active Directory. So that's the basic stuff I'm trying to explain here. And also we also have the self-service password reset works in the following scenario. So we have that the way we can use this, and one of the way is the password change. We have the password reset and the account lock. So if a user wants to change their password, they can actually use this feature in the Azure Active Directory to change their password. And also if a user wants to reset their password, they can also use this feature that is in their Azure Active Directory to reset their password. We also have the account unlock, which I explained earlier. When they try to log into their device and their device is locked, they can actually unlock their device on their own without the need for them to contact the IT help desk. So I also wrote when a user updates or reset their password using self-service password reset, that password can be written back to an on-prem Active Directory environment. So password write back makes sure that a user can immediately use their updated credential with on-premises devices and application. So basically, if a user wants to reset their password and maybe that user was, if that user is created on-prem and they want to reset their password, and after they reset their password, they also need to use it to access other applications and log into maybe their devices. What would make that work will be the password right back. So for the password right back, can I just go back to my screen, please? Can you help me switch the? Yes, okay. So for the password right back, I will just try to make it fast because I also created a server on-prem, so I can just explain how everything works. So when you're in your Active Directory and then you're trying to set up your self-service password reset, we have options here where you can actually choose to select it all for all users. And one of the prerequisites that you would need before you can do this, you would need the Azure Premium P1 or P2 license to set this up. And you can choose to select all the users in your tenant. You can also choose to um, create a group and put some selected users you want them to have this feature on their account. So you can select a group, you can select all. And after you've done that, we have the authentication method. So what happens in this authentication method, you can choose the different ways that you want the users to use what they would always refer to when they are trying to probably reset their password. So they can always set that up at first. And after they set that up, then anytime they want to probably reset their password, they would always um, provide these informations that were set up at first. So now we have different options that you can choose from. So from this my tenants, I chose the email, the office phone, and security questions. So if you're choosing the security questions, you can choose the number of questions that are required that the user needs to register, and you can also choose the number of questions the user needs to provide when they want to reset their questions. And those questions can be selected. You can choose to select different questions that you want the users to pick from anytime they are trying to set up these services. So when you're done selecting this, the next thing you see here is require users to register when signing in. So what this does is you can choose, while after setting this up, if a user is trying to sign in after you've done this whole setup, the user will be prompted to fill in these informations. Like the user will have to register with this information after they try to sign in when this whole process has been implemented. So we also have the numbers of days before the users is being asked for the information they provided, that they should try to reconfirm informations that were provided. Then we have notifications where you also notify users after they have when they reset their password. You can notify the users. We also have where you can also notify admins when an admin resets their password. So we also have the notifications here. Then we have customizations. So most times this customization where you see customize help desk link, you can actually have like maybe a site where you try to explain the procedures for users, and then you can always put the link here. Maybe if a user is having issues trying to set up their password resets, you can put a link here where they can just go through the link and follow the process. Or you can also create like put your help desk ticket link where they can always contact the help desk for guidance while setting this up. So this particular place is what we need to also focus on when we are talking about the um, password right back. So here is where we set up the password right back so that users that were sync from on-prem to the cloud, they can actually follow this process. Now, if you don't turn on this, if you have synced users, there will be issues with the when it comes to password reset. So what this does, it tries to create a process where when a user that was synced from the on-prem is resetting their password, the password can actually sync back to the on-prem in real time. So this is not like the normal sync we all know where password syncs after 2 minutes. But when we are talking about this, it will sync in real time. But then doing this alone is not just enough, because after you do this and did not configure this on your server side where you have your AD Connect tool, this won't be working. So you have to come here. So I already set up my Active Directory here, and this is a user I created, a test user. I already created the test user, so I don't spend a lot of time. So this is the test user that was created on-prem, and this user I've already synced the user to cloud. And after syncing the user to cloud, I tried to log in with the user, which I did here. But then when I tried changing the password, I was just doing like a demo, but I didn't really want to waste time. You'll see you have issues with that. But when you come to the Connect, Azure AD Connect tools, and you open it, when you open this should come up. Then when this should come up, I would, okay, now this is up. You would configure this, and when you're configuring this, you have to customize your synchronization. So I will just try to run this very fast so I can get there. So I'm going to put my password. So now this is the my global admin for my tenants. So I will just put my password real quick so we can get to the part where the whole password right back will be set. So this is loading. So when this is done, I'm just going to click on next. And then when we go to the optional features. So if you look at this now, I ticked the password right back. So if this is not ticked, you won't be able to use the feature of the password right back. So what this does, it helps to synchronize the password in real time, and it does not just synchronize the password, it also helps when you have password policies that we already set for within your on-prem environment. If you have password policies, these password policies will be implemented on those sync users when they are trying to reset their password. Once you are done ticking the password right back, you can just click on next, and click on next. The whole synchronization process is going to take place. And once you're done with that, let me just check real time if, okay, then once you're done with that, there's this two link you need to use. So one of the link is for setting up your password. So once you're done, I already did that for this user. So if you go to this link, which is the aka.ms/SSPRO. So the user will have the ability to set up their authentication method, which I already added for this user. The user would add their alternative emails, they will also answer their security questions and all of that. So after the user have finished doing that, anytime this user wants to reset their password, they can always come back to use the other link, which is this link I'm going to be pasting here, which is the aka.ms/SSPRO. So this is not like the setup, this is for the password reset. So once the user comes to this particular part, they can always put in their email. And once they put in their email, so let me just try to run this user email real quick. Okay, on-prem. Let me just run this user email real quick on this. Then I'm going to write this out. So once I click next now, I hope I got it right. Okay. uh, let me just confirm the email, please. Okay. So I'm just going to wait for the okay. So now this is the next page where this is going to be taking me to. So once the user is planning to reset their password, you can see the user now have the option where they can reset their password. And if you can see the next one is I know my password, but still can't log in. So this particular scenario here is for users that are probably locked out of their devices and they need to unlock their account. So if you want to unlock your account, you can use this. But if you forget your account, the user can always use this. And then once the user clicks on next, you can see that I already registered this external alternative email address. So once I click on mail, I will get a code which I would use to reset this password. I can also choose to provide the answers to my security questions that I was asked. And once I do that also, I would have access to resetting the password. And if I'm also using the other method, which is for locked accounts, I can always use that to get back into my I can use that to get back into my device. So with this process that I just explained, when organizations that have the on-prem environment and also they also have cloud users and all of that, the idea of sending a lot of tickets for the help desk or contacting the administrator when a user needs to um, change their password or reset their password or they are being locked out, it is reduced and the workflow would be of tickets coming into the IT help desk would be reduced in this particular aspect. And when we also have our on-prem environment, you can see with the password write back feature, you can actually allow your synced users to reset their password, and the password will be synced back to the on-prem in real time. And apart from the password being synced back on-prem in real time, the policies that were already set, the password policies that were set up in the on-prem environment would also be implemented. I think for now, this is all I will be saying regarding this. And also, I would like to say thank you for your time and thank you, Matthew and Dan, for your time. So, thanks so much. This is all I have to say for tonight, so I don't waste a lot of time.
Amazing, Solomon. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry we've been short on time this evening, guys. What you call it? Some fantastic speakers. Some interesting content from Azure DevOps all the way over to Microsoft Azure AD Connect, all the way over to Office 365 and Intune. Some really good topics. What you call it? Has anybody got any questions? Anything that we kind of want to ask each other or anything? No, we all
Solomon,
shy and tired.
that was a great demo. Where
Yeah.
did you? Are
Thank you,
those
Dan.
your
Thank you,
own?
Dan.
Are those your own virtual machines, or are those like classroom virtual machines? How do you use those?
I actually use them to train people. So I just I just created this today because of the um, event. So I just had to set this up real quick. So
That was perfect.
yeah, thank you so much.
Solomon, tell us what is your area in terms of certification and training? What is it you specialize in?
So my area of specialization, I am more into I would say I started the whole cloud with Exchange online admin. So, but then I started moving into more of security and compliance, where I help organizations to create DLP policies, sensitive information. I also do simulation attacks and all of that. So, but then I also do other stuff. So apart from the exchange online, I also handle Teams, SharePoint
Okay.
sites. Yeah. So, and I also handle the Azure Active Directories. I set up the servers also for organizations.
I suppose, would you have looked at the, what you call it now, the beta exam for Exchange, Salman? That's currently in beta. Were you lucky enough to get to give it a shot?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, no, it's amazing how you started out in Exchange, Jeannie. Does anyone remember having to mount databases? No, and fixing them? No. I know Solomon does, and was because his face just lit up. What you call it? And tell us a bit about your specialization. I know it's I know it's DevOps. Just give us a 5 minute kind of intro as to what it is you do on a daily basis for people that may not have ever looked at DevOps. You know, I think he's muted, is he?
Yeah, we're still.
Yes, I'm on mute. Sorry.
No,
Can you
there
hear
we
me?
go. Yeah, we can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a classical thing, even during the meetings, I start talking in the Teams and then I realize, mute. Okay, so I'm basically, I started as an Azure engineer. I started with Azure assessment. So when I say that assessment, it means that you are assessing the data center workloads, and then you are together with the application owners. Then you feel that, okay, what can be migrated as a part of lift and shift. So that is how I started. And then after assessment, I moved as an Azure engineer, in sense like building a prototype, that okay, if a service, I mean, like if an application needs services, how to deploy it and those kind of things, building a prototype in Azure, uh, which fits what application. And then slowly, once the prototype is built, then I slowly moved into the DevOps part, or the infrastructure as a code part, which I started initially with PowerShell. Then I moved into Terraform. Then I moved into Terraform and PowerShell together, and now I'm working with Azure Biceps. And then now I have elevated my position as an architect. So I am an Azure lead and like an Azure architect and a DevOps architect. So my role is more into architecture, build, run, and automation. So that is how, in a nutshell, is my profile and my day-to-day work.
Did you take the Azure expert exam yet, or are you in progress kind of with it?
So to me, it's Dan. For me, I like to give the certification when I have a little bit of hands-on in most of the
Okay.
areas. I didn't give the architect examination only for one reason, is because I still have the services, the messaging services, the event grid, service bus. I still don't have a real-time exposure. So I have, yes, that is the only reason that I have hold it, because I know myself that as soon as I give that examination, I will never touch the services. This is me.
Yeah, Arndam, I think you would pass this or expert exam with flying colours, genuinely, with the level of what I saw on the thing today. I think Solomon, you would as well if you haven't already done it. I think all
I've
five
done
of
it
us.
already.
Oh, you've done it. Okay, okay.
I
So
done it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it. Look, I mean, all five of us here are very capable engineers and IT architects. I think people are afraid of that Azure exam. I don't know why, but I think Microsoft have, I suppose, they have said for a lot of people it is quite a heavy exam to undertake. I remember I was lucky enough, I didn't have to take the ones Frank and Dan had to take. I had the AZ305. I took that when it was in beta, and obviously I passed it. But I was surprised to see how far I had passed it. As in, it was a good score. It was a decent score. But Microsoft, I know people that said to me that they took the exam and their questions were fairly full on. Like some of the labs they got, and it was tough. But I don't think taking a certification exam actually defines you really. It just means, look, you've gone off and you've done the paper. But people like Solomon, like yourself, where you're doing all the demos and showing people how to actually use the infrastructure, that's the kind of person I'd like to be learning off. And it's the same with you, Aaron, because that's something Microsoft, I think they're short of practical MCTs. Like Dan does a lot of you work as an MCT as well, Dan, and you know, there's a great thing reading off a presentation and saying your piece, and that's grand, but actually showing someone how to do it is another level. And the level of expertise here tonight was quite good, I have to say. That's just my thinking and my viewpoint on it. It's not easy to get up and give presentations on Azure AD Connect, password write back, DevOps, pools, the going through the flow of the code and all that. Sorry, the pipeline. Some great stuff. And Frank, of course, going through all the fundamentals in Azure for anybody that hasn't done it. I think the MS 900 is another fantastic exam. Some great stuff tonight, guys. Solomon, I meant to say as well, obviously you're going to be added to the most valuable contributors on the Focus IT website. I'm hoping that this would be our group, kind of no matter what, over the next few months, where we had me, we had Dan, with Frank, with Solomon, with Aaron. I think if we had this group alone, we'll be able to give all the people out there that really don't know what they want to get into in Azure or DevOps or Office 365 or Teams, really everybody here that we can give people a flavor of all the different elements while showing them something practical, while having a conversation about the exams, not being afraid to say the things that others might not say, because there's politics and all that with what you say. Dan and I started this off with a dream, wasn't it, Dan? It was a dream we had. One night I was over in the UK. You're muted, Dan.
Same thing, like you start talking and then it tells you you're muted. Yeah, it started with just the two of us, and we're up to 6 to 9 typically on these panels, which is great.
This started off, I was in London at the time, and myself and Dan just met over LinkedIn. That's where it started, and I'm hoping myself and Dan will meet each other in person in June now. So
you guys haven't met yet in person?
No.
Really?
Not.
Nice.
No.
Okay, this is the whole DevOps culture. You're in two different locations, working together, contributing, and then you haven't met. This is cool.
Yeah, in a month I'll be over in Dublin, so
yeah,
it'll be fun to
so I'm over in Ireland. Dan, you're over in, where are you again? It's
Chicago suburbs.
Chicago, that's it.
Midwest.
Frank is about half an hour up the road from me, Frank Falvey. Solomon, where are you based?
I'm in Nigeria.
Nigeria, my God, I'd be a long time traveling there. Aaron, where are you based?
I'm from Switzerland.
Switzerland. Okay, question. If I open a Swiss bank account tonight, can I get money over there? I'm joking.
That's a notion, Matthew. This is a notion that there's no concept called Swiss bank.
I
There's
know,
no
yeah.
plans yet.
All those films gave Switzerland a bad rep. I don't
Yeah.
care what anyone says. Switzerland, wow, Switzerland, Nigeria, Chicago, Cork, Limerick. Raquel is in the background saying nothing. Doing an amazing job.
Chicago.
Also Chicago.
Chicago, you are doing an amazing job tonight, Mrs. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us a hand.
Oh, I'm just trying to learn so I can be better for next time.
Oh no, I found myself kind of stepping back tonight now and letting yourself and Dan. I started realizing that you were working together on seeing all the animations. Great stuff. Guys, this has been such a good event. I am going to be. We won't be on next week because I'm actually I'm on annual leave finally in 5 months. So I'm taking a week off, but we will have the following week. I'll have it arranged that we do an event. Is anyone feeling anything in particular for the next event from the different areas? Salman, what would you like to do?
For the next event,
Hmm.
I think I'll just think about it. Maybe something in Exchange.
Okay, yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Exchange is something that we're going to be using still. So it's just Exchange online now. So
but
we're fine. They're trying to phase out the
it has
old
a lot.
on-prem.
It has a lot in it, right? So if you
Yeah,
talk about the Exchange, there are a lot of other stuff that are built into Exchange. So
I
and
definitely didn't pass that exam. I'm nearly sure of it. I'll send you my score when I get the result. I definitely failed the Exchange exam. Arendam, what would you like to talk about on the next one?
I would love to talk about. There are a couple of topics I have in mind.
Okay.
It's like, whenever people think, when I started DevOps, I was like, not very comfortable. I just want to present something, which can make people, not hesitant enough that it's DevOps is not like, a big giant monster or something that you have to be afraid of. It's very simple to start with something. So maybe, DevOps and Terraform together, something together, a little bit of architecture and those kind of things.
That would be amazing. Frank, what are you going to do for us the next day? What would you like to do, bearing in mind that we're running out of talking about fundamental exams, unless you're going to do Power BI?
I've done a bit of machine learning.
Okay, AI,
Um,
AI 900,
no.
or no?
It's Azure machine learning.
Okay.
They've got a kind of graphical drag and drop. Have anybody ever seen it?
I've
I've
played
seen,
around with it.
yeah, I've seen some of it. All right, yeah.
Yeah, there's one part you have to do all the coding and everything else to
Yeah.
crunch the data, but this one is actually Microsoft gives you this cheat sheet with all the, like, we say, if you were doing, we'd say, something that's got two things in it, it's got a yes or a no. Like we say, if you got a data set now and you wanted to figure out whether there was fraud in the data set or there wasn't fraud in it, so it'll give you two. So it would be two classes basically. You use a two-class algorithm. So basically, you want to know whether there is fraud or there's not. So you use that one, and you just pull that actually into. You'd have a grid, and you patch up all the different things.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe something like that, or else maybe something like an IoT,
Okay.
Internet of Things. There's Microsoft has they have this prototype on GitHub that you can actually go into your Azure subscription, set up an IoT hub, and then go out and copy your code, go over to GitHub, and you just paste it in there, and two of them sync up nicely.
Okay, all right.
Maybe something like
Sounds
that. I
good.
don't know. Maybe
Dan, you have got away from you've been given a wide berth in terms of your managing the last two events for me while I was off skiving. No, I was actually sick, honestly. 4 days in bed will do it to you. What are you going to do for us the next day? Because we're obviously I'm hoping our presenters will be Aaron, Solomon, Frank, and Dan for the next event.
Yeah. I can
so
talk
what are you
about
going to do for
Microsoft.
us?
I can talk about Microsoft 365 groups and how they work
Perfect.
with Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and many other Microsoft technologies. So I'll put that together for the 27th. And I know that Saturday I am doing a pickleball tournament. So as long as there are any other things going on,
we will look. We'll do confirmation with everyone because we all have lives as well. But we generally try to keep it every 2 weeks for those of you who are watching. Okay, so Dan, Frank, Solomon, and Aaron, one last question. So, Dan, you missed our Let's Talk certification, or did you? I can't remember. Were you there last night?
Yeah.
You were, but you missed the end. I think we didn't get you. So, what's your favorite CompTIA certification?
I don't have.
If you were to do one, if I
were to do one, it would probably be the Security Plus at this point.
Solomon is happy. Solomon is really happy. Solomon got 3 votes. Himself and was another colleague. I think but I don't remember his name.
What was your Solomon last night?
Security Plus also.
Security Plus. And Frank, what was yours last night?
Linux Plus.
Linux. And Aaron, yours?
It was Network Plus.
Network Plus, and mine was CISA. Raquel, if you were to pick one, if you were to decide to dive into it, what would you be interested in?
In a cloud topic?
So like what CompTIA certification would you do if you had one to choose?
I honestly have no idea. I am the least knowledgeable on this, even though my dad's a Microsoft MVP. I just listened to him talk about Azure, and I think that sounds cool because the name is Azure. But as far as I know, there seems like a lot of possibilities with all this stuff, and I respect it completely.
So guys, I'm going to say Raquel's a Cloud Plus kind of gal, and that's what she might like in CompTIA, Cloud Plus or Cloud Essentials. It's a really good exam, Raquel. You'd actually, it's a fun, energetic, interesting exam. You'd love it. I am so happy to have you here, Raquel. It has just been so helpful. I do hope you'll join us on more events, helping, and eventually maybe you might turn on the camera and say hello to everyone for all the hard work that you were doing tonight, to be fair to you. So we all really appreciate it, honestly.
Well, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really want to help out as much as I can because I think all this information is very useful.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you. Dan, can you see us out like you did earlier there? Thanks a million to Dan, Solomon, Frank, and Aaron and Raquel in the background for all the help. Guys, wishing you a good weekend. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Yeah.